The great director Alexander McKendrick once said that a true movie is likely to be 60 to 80% comprehensible, even if the dialogue is in a foreign language. And I've always wondered about that theory and whether it would actually work in practice. And if so, then what are true movies and what aren't? Well, recently I finally got my chance to try it out. Last weekend I was in Barcelona for Primavera Sound 2022, and whilst it was recently voted like one of the best things to do this year, and I had a great time in general,
Oh my god! Ah!
somehow I still felt a deep FOMO in my heart, and I knew why that was. It was because I wasn't witnessing the epic conclusion to the Jurassic era. Now, whilst the film has continued to be a huge financial success, responses from audiences and critics have been almost overwhelmingly negative, with the film now the lowest rated in the entire franchise on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, a response like this could stop anyone from wanting to waste time or money on Jurassic World Dominion, particularly if you're like me and you weren't really invested in this new trilogy to begin with, and especially when you realise that the film is almost 2.5 hours long. However, many of the reviews pointed to one of the film's core flaws being its story, particularly it being over-convoluted and genuinely hard to follow at points. This is what gave me potentially the dumbest idea I've had in a while, which is if I saw this film in Spanish, would I be able to understand a plot that is apparently already hard to understand in English? Well, before you could say Dino DNA, I headed to a cinema in Las Arenas, Barcelona, which is actually in a converted bull ring, and I bought myself one ticket to see Jurassic World Dominion in all of its Spanish glory. Now, if you didn't think this was dumb enough already, I actually managed to miss the beginning of Jurassic World Dominion because I overestimated how many ads are played before films in Spain. When I pointed at the movie poster and said propaganda, the guy at the desk said sí. Now, either he was lying to me because I was being an annoying tourist, which well within his rights, or he, like me, shares the opinion that this film could arguably be viewed as such a thing. Like, the core idea of this movie is trying to be progressive for dinosaurs. It's basically arguing that, like, humans and dinosaurs should be able to coexist in harmony, which is like a nice romantic idea that instantly collapses every time you think about the fact that velociraptors would just simply savage every toddler they saw. Now, it's important to note that I have not read any reviews, I have not read the Wikipedia synopsis, I am entirely working off my memory of seeing this film in Spanish a week ago. However, I did take notes whilst watching the film to kind of track my thoughts, and I'll be reading from them throughout this review. So as I made it into the cinema, we were being introduced to Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard's character. They're living in like a hut in the snow somewhere with this young girl who I think was from the last movie, and I have in my head that she was a clone. She was my first point of like massive confusion because they show her looking at this photo of a girl that looks a lot like her at the original park. So I thought either she is a clone or like they cryo-froze her and that's why she's still 15 years old now. I hoped it would make sense later. At this time I also had the brief idea to read their lips, but then I instantly remembered I can't do that, so that plan was scrapped. We then cut to a farm where all of a sudden this giant locust horde comes out of this crop and tries to attack these two children, and I thought, great, here we go, we're going to show how idiotic this premise is. These two children are dead, but alas, they survived. Laura Dern turns up to see that these are no ordinary locusts, but like weird dino bugs who are eating crops. It's not the last we hear of this, folks. Strap in. We are then introduced to Sam Neill, who is still inexplicably digging for dinosaurs in a world where they exist. I think this was supposed to be a kind of character revealing point where like, oh look, he loves paleontology, but I simply wrote down, what a fucking nerd. Him and Laura Dern have this big reunion where there's some obvious sexual tension, but in terms of the details of what happened between movies, I have no idea about because it was all in dialogue. I think they talk about her kids at one point, but I don't know if they're his kids as well, or if it's the kids from the first movie. Doesn't matter, because they don't show up anyway. It was at this point my morale began to seriously wane, because not only was I in the weeds on several major plot points, big locust bugs included, but this film was already extremely boring. There's very little compelling scenes, it's not very fun visually, which led me to write the following notes that you can really take as a haiku. I want to leave. I have to be strong. You did a year of Duolingo for this. Jeff Goldblum should have done his Spanish dub. Which brings us nicely on to the next scene where Sam Neill and Laura Dern go to like what I think is a dinosaur university where Jeff Goldblum is teaching. It was also at this point I started to wonder what the Spanish for dinosaur is. I think it's dinosaurio. If that is wrong, I apologise to any Spanish viewers. Throughout the film I was generally looking for Spanish words that I'd been using on my holiday, which was cuenta, cerveza, and Dua Lipa. The main plot finally kicks off when we cut back to Bryce Dallas Howard and Chris Pratt when Blue's baby raptor and their adopted clone child get kidnapped by some evil guys in the woods. Why they steal them, we don't know yet, or at least I didn't. This leads them on a globe-trotting chase to get them back. A quick sidebar, one thing I really didn't get in this movie, and is arguably the main premise of the entire thing, is how the world is dealing with the dinosaurs being loose. And it seems that everyone was just kind of acting normally. So in this scene where they're asking this guy for help, they're in like this outdoor cafe, and everyone's just chilling, and I'm like, if the dinosaurs were back, I would not be going for an alfresco coffee. They then track down Blue to what I can only describe as like a Mos Eisley cantina scene, but for dinosaurs. There's a lot of like wacky practical puppets and nefarious characters in the background. Now usually I would be all for practical effects, but it's kind of hard to enjoy them when you're experiencing such whiplash going from these hyperactive ILM CGI dinosaurs to a goofy little Triceratops puppet that looks like one of these. Generally, I felt there was a lot of kind of Star Wars and Indiana Jones in this movie, i.e. the films they won't let Colin make anymore. For example, I got a very Han Solo vibe from this character, though I have no idea why she joins the main adventure. There's a scene between her and Claire in a bathroom, I think, where she shows her like a bullet. I'm assuming it's like a line like, "Here's the bullet you're gonna catch if you don't get out of here, kid." It's also revealed in this scene that the bad guys have finally programmed dinosaurs as weapons, so they like point a red dot at them and they make them attack. But Chris Pratt's still like trying to fend them off with his training. And honestly, I started to think about how easy it is to control dinosaurs. You literally just have to do this and go, hey. There's then a whole big chase scene, which is actually kind of fun. But before you can start to enjoy it, we cut back to Sam Neill and Laura Dern, who are like infiltrating this big dino facility in a scene that, I shit you not, entirely revolves around wheat. So much of this movie's plot revolves around these locust bugs and their interactions with wheat, and in Spanish, this scene was just two people looking at wheat and going, what is this? I think it is revealed in this scene that the bad guy is the one who's making these locust bugs so that they can decimate people's crops. Why, I do not know. I have a couple theories we will get to. It was also around this time that my cryo-freeze clone girl theory completely collapsed, because it is revealed that the girl in the photo was not her, but her mother, who was injecting her with stuff when she was a baby. What was she injecting her with? How does this tie into the locusts? Why is any of this happening? I don't know, but here are my best theories. I simply wrote, is she going to become a bug? Is she going to get dinosaur powers? This is honestly not a joke, but my best theory about what the bad guy's plan was is that he was trying to meld dinos with animals to make like a new hybrid species, and then eventually start experimenting on humans to make like a new race of dinosaur people with dinosaur powers. However, even if all of that is true, and for their sake, I really hope not, I still have no idea how it ties in with the wheat and the crops. Like, why are they doing that? Were they trying to frame the dinosaurs? At this point, we start to enter the final act of the film, where the old cast join forces with the new one, and the epicness of this moment is kind of undermined by the instant realization of how much better looking the old cast are than like Chris Pratt, who's supposed to be like the leading man of this film, which is nasty, but you know, so is institutionalized homophobia. It was at this point I started to kind of give up entirely, my notes massively drop off, and so I'm having a genuinely hard time remembering what happened at the end of this film, as it was so anticlimactic. I remember that the main bad guy like burns the wheat and the locusts and then gets eaten by dinosaurs, so that whole subplot kind of dies with him, I guess. Some big dinosaurs fight, Sam Neill and Laura Dern kiss, Baby Blue gets reunited with Big Blue, and it's over. My journey had come to an end. So in conclusion, can you understand Jurassic World Dominion in a foreign language? Is it, as McKendrick said, a true film? No. Of course it fucking isn't. But I think it depends on what you mean by understand, because if you mean like story, character, themes, I'm absolutely clueless. But if you are talking about the core idea of a film, you know, why it was made, I think I actually did understand it. The very end of this movie cuts to these like epic shots of dinosaurs living in harmony with our natural world. And you start to realize that this whole franchise, this new trilogy, was just like a 7-hour justification to that. I feel like the pitch for this series was, wouldn't it be cool to see like David Attenborough-esque shots of dinosaurs with natural wildlife? Wouldn't that be cool? And then they built 3 movies around it, and thus the Jurassic saga was born. The Jurassic World films are basically an idea that a toddler had that grown adults have been feverishly trying to yes and with billions of dollars. And surprise, surprise, it doesn't make a lot of sense and it didn't work. What's Spanish for you fucking idiots? Thanks for watching this very silly video. I just wanted to get something fun out there in the meantime. If you like this video, please subscribe, follow me on socials, watch some of my other videos. I just made this one about Anthony Bourdain. And join me next time where I'll be watching Elvis in German.